Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Infinity, and this is Magnetize Yourself, where we talk about life, love, spirituality, and of course, the law of attraction. Now, I know that I've been doing a lot of reading videos lately, and I really enjoy doing that style of video, and I promise there are many more of those coming in the future. But I wanted to take a quick pause from those reading videos and discuss something that I feel is extremely relevant to some of our collective here. Now, with that being said, the information I'm going to be sharing in this podcast and what we are going to be opening a conversation about here is something that is extremely difficult for our physical human minds to fully grasp. It is something that is really difficult to find the words, the language to describe. So do bear with me here as I share some thoughts and channeled information about this topic, but also I would really love to hear your thoughts and perspectives in the comments, because I am just so grateful that we've been able to really cultivate this beautiful community here of like-minded, conscious, creative beings, and we truly are co-creators here on this channel. So thank you so much for being a very powerful and important part of that. And also, I would love if you feel guided to do so, if you could take the opportunity to subscribe to this channel and join our community here. So today what we're going to be discussing are collapsing timelines. Now, the reason I want to discuss this is because this actually came up in a recent twin flame reading video. And in recent readings, we have been talking about how twin flames really represent that highest vibrational form of soul connection. And how, because of that, in order to align with our twin flame, what is required of us, and really all that is required of us, it's both so simple and yet so complicated at the same time, is for us to align with that highest vibrational version of ourself. And from that space of being, from consistently holding that very high, clear vibration of really total self-reconnection, really coming into who we are at the core soul level and holding that frequency, that is what allows us to attract in these forms of deep soul connection, authentic soul connection, those who we resonate with at a soul level, whether these are romantic or platonic, soulmates, or of course, a twin flame situation. And of course, the reason this happens, the reason rising to our highest vibrational timeline naturally calls in our high-level soulmates and aligns us with our twin flame as well, is because these are the members of what we sometimes call a soul family, a soul tribe. At a spiritual level, these are the other souls that share a similar frequency to us. However, when we are masking this frequency artificially, as 99% of us do here on planet Earth, because it's very easy to mask this frequency, because this is how we are trained and taught and programmed. We are artificially programmed away from who we truly are at the soul level. And the result of this is that we are kept, we are held artificially in these so-called lower vibrational or mid-vibrational timelines. In fact, most of the planets is living in a very low vibrational or if they're lucky, potentially they are able to kind of claw their way to a mid-vibrational timeline, but very few are capable of achieving, aligning with those highest vibrational versions of themselves, those so-called high vibrational timelines. And the reason for this isn't because they don't have the power to do so. It is because someone has taken their power, because someone has made them forget. And essentially what I mean by this is, again, we are taught and programmed away from who we truly came here to be, and living in that kind of forced inauthenticity, trying to conform ourselves to society's standards or expectations, and losing ourselves in the process, losing our true selves in the process, is what keeps us stuck in those, what again I'm referring to kind of broadly as low to mid vibrational timelines. Now, the thing is that many of us as souls, especially those of you who resonate with this kind of spiritual content and material, have elected at the soul level, have essentially volunteered to participate in radically raising the collective frequency of humanity on planet Earth by showing a new path, by being one of the few that we often refer to as path forgers. And the reason we refer to these volunteered souls as path forgers is because just like cutting a path through the trees, through a very dense forest is difficult, it requires a lot of exertion of energy, because you are not following the well-trodden path, the kind of easy path. In the same way, being one of these souls who volunteers to break free of a low vibrational timeline, to open, to expand to many different possibilities, timelines, outcomes, and then to begin radically rising, or sometimes we use the word ascending to that high vibrational timeline. Doing this, just as cutting that path in the forest, takes a lot of expenditure of energy, and not just expenditure of energy, but also an influx of energy in order to catalyze, in order to begin this process. And this is often what we refer to as an awakening. So when we awaken, this is when we, as a soul with spiritual amnesia in a physical body, living as many people do on one of those lower vibrational timelines, we receive some kind of influx of energy so intensely that it begins to radically raise the vibration of our being, essentially breaking us out of those lower timelines. Now, the reason that the concept of these collapsing timelines comes up very frequently in the context of twin flame connection is because meeting a twin flame is one such vibration raising, awakening, catalyzing event. This isn't the only way that one can experience an awakening, but for many of us who identify as twin flames, who really resonate with the concept of being a twin flame, this feeling of resonance is our soul remembering at some unconscious level that this twin flame journey is the vehicle we have personally selected in this life for the purpose of reawakening us and setting us on this path to that highest timeline. So meeting a twin flame, because you are encountering consciously the person who shares that core soul frequency, that's most authentic frequency beneath all of the levels and layers, this causes a kind of energetic merging effect between the two of you that begins to not only very radically raise your vibration, but confront and break down any walls, any of that, again, going back to that artificial societal programming that has been preventing you from fully connecting with who you truly are. So naturally, because your vibration really correlates with your timeline, when you experience something such as meeting a twin flame, this will instantaneously begin to break you out of your current timeline. And this begins to result in what we sometimes call ego death, the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul very often is us walking through this metaphorical tunnel between timelines, feeling very lost, feeling very ungrounded and confused. But the reason we are feeling so ungrounded is because the majority of people remain in the same or a very similar, again, low to mid vibrational timeline for a singular lifetime. The human physical body and brain is not typically accustomed to readjusting itself to timelines that are shifting very fast. So for the sake of coherency, of consistency, of being able to make logical sense of the world, most souls will opt to only experience very similar, again, lower vibrational timeline states in a single lifetime because they aren't yet prepared for the kind of radical soul evolution and the kind of readjustments, constant readjustments that has to happen when you become one who is essentially traveling through or shifting through these timelines very quickly. So again, your vibration indicates the timeline that you are personally on in this life. And because most people live very unconsciously and never become fully aware of the subconscious patterns, the so-called negative energetic blockages within them, within the mind that are keeping them stuck. They aren't even aware that they are energetically imprisoned to this one lower timeline because that is just what their brain conceptualizes as normal, as quote unquote, the way that it is, the way that I am, the way that life is or should be. They quite literally cannot envision more for themselves because they haven't experienced an energetic event in their life to shake them up enough to literally break them open to the possibility of these higher timelines for themselves. But you are different. If you are resonating with this video, it is because at some level you are aware that you elected, you volunteered as one of those rare souls who has experienced enough soul evolution, soul expansion in previous lifetimes, meaning you are most likely a very ancient spiritual being, an old soul. And you chose to come to planet Earth, which, by the way, is not an easy planet, especially for you who have lived so many lives and experiences. You chose to come here because you wanted to assist the collective consciousness by showing a different way, by showing that path to rising onto a higher timeline. But again, this presents many unique challenges, one of these being what we refer to as collapsing timelines. So a collapsing timeline is essentially a previous or alternate timeline that is not your highest vibrational timeline, but that potentially you have either lived in for a while in this lifetime, or you have shifted through briefly, moved through briefly. And what happens is once you have moved out of this timeline and you are shifting now onto the next timeline, into a higher version of yourself and your life, this timeline must be closed out. It must be collapsed. But the problem is, for a while after you have risen onto a higher timeline, you are still going to be able to feel the pull of that alternate version or previous version of yourself that was living on that somewhat lower vibrational timeline. And this is when we say this timeline is in the process of collapsing, of closing out. Essentially, what is happening here is there is a part of you still feeling this attachment, feeling this kind of connection to this version of yourself that is no longer you. It's almost as though you are feeling the echoes of this alternate reality with its own alternate future trajectory that you are no longer living, and that, oddly enough, you may not even desire to live. This is where the cognitive dissonance and some of the confusion comes in here. Because when you are collapsing a particular timeline, you can be fully aware that the timeline you are rising onto is right for you, is better for you, carries a higher frequency and vibration. And yet at the same time, you can feel a sense of sadness, a sense of attachment to the echoes of that collapsing timeline, that old timeline. And the grief that comes along with this can be very intense because it can feel as though you are actually grieving a version of yourself, an alternate version of yourself. And to be someone who is fully committed to rising to that highest vibrational version of self, aligning with your highest timeline, the very challenging parts of this journey, of your journey, is that this is a process of grieving of a part of the self, of an alternate version of the self with its own alternate life, purpose, path, relationships, friendships, connections. This is something that you will have to do over and over again. It's a process of grieving pieces of yourself that is necessary to be one who is fully committed to rising to that highest version of yourself, because essentially you have to leave behind the weights of these other vibrational timelines, these so-called lower vibrational versions of yourself, your connections, your relationships, in order to allow them to transform. And so very often you will be called to collapse these old timelines, meaning to, again, fully commit yourself to the vision of who you are becoming, who your soul truly desires to be, and leaving behind these other versions of yourself. Now, where this becomes even more complicated is when it comes to our relationships and connections, particularly our romantic relationships. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this in this first video. There is so much that could be said on this topic. And do let me know in the comments if you have any questions, any insights about this, or any recommendations for future topics within this kind of umbrella topic of timelines or collapsing timelines, because I would love to hear from you if you would like more information on this. But when it comes to our romantic connections, specifically for those of you who are on a twin flame path and experiencing this collapsing of timelines, you have this added element of chaos, because most people, again, live in this very rigid, static vibrational state that keeps them anchored to one particular timeline or very similar timelines with very similar romantic trajectories and options in their life. So essentially, when they meet a person who is meant to be a life partner for them in that one particular timeline to which they are very anchored through their own static vibration, there is this sense of knowing, there is this sense of clarity about this person, this feeling of confirmation. Yes, this is the person I am supposed to be with. And for many people, this may not necessarily be a high vibrational soulmate or a twin flame, because that might not be the kind of intensity that their soul chose to take on or to rise to in this lifetime. So this could be simply a life partner situation, a kind of mid-level romantic soulmate situation. But again, because they are very anchored to this one timeline where they are living in this shared vibrational state with this person, there's no doubt, there's no confusion, there's no chaos. However, when you are someone who, let's say you have met a twin flame or experienced some other kind of very catalytic spiritual events in your life that has sparked an awakening within you, that has caused you to now very quickly rise through these different timelines, when you meet a person to whom you might share a life partnership on one of these potential timelines, you will feel a pull to them. You will feel a connection with them. However, because you are rising through timelines very quickly, this can create a lot of confusion. Because as you continue to rise very fast into this highest version of yourself, you may find yourself rapid pace meeting a lot of different potential life partners, soulmates, even high vibrational soulmates as you move, as you shift into that highest vibrational version of yourself. So again, this can create a lot of chaos and confusion in your life, a lot of uncertainty, as you may feel as though you have a connection or a pull to these different individuals, these different souls and people, and it can become a little fuzzy or unclear to you exactly what role these different souls are supposed to play in your life. And again, this can be very challenging for the physical human mind to fully wrap itself around and figure out, especially when you form a connection with these other souls to whom you share some kind of life partnership in a particular timeline. You begin to form a soul tie with them in the physical, and then you begin to rise quickly to a higher vibrational version of yourself. Because what tends to happen here is that person, that connection, continues to kind of hang on, and you can feel as though you're being pulled in two different directions, as though there is both this higher version of yourself and your romantic relationships calling you, but at the same time, you might feel weighted or pulled to this timeline that you have lived in briefly with this other soul and to whom you share this other potential alternate outcome, so to speak. So again, I know that this information is extremely high level kind of spiritual topics and conversation. And again, it can be really difficult to find the words to describe this, but I felt really guided to create this video because I feel that many of you are experiencing this collapsing of timelines and some of the confusion that goes along with this. So if this is something you've encountered or are currently experiencing, I really would love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments. Now, before I close this video, I do want to share with you that because we have been speaking so much about vibration and how your vibration really correlates with the current timeline that you are on, and I know that there can be a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty around this, and that is because the human mind is trying to wrap itself around a topic that is extremely spiritual, that is something we simply intuitively feel and sense, and that is simply difficult for the mind to grasp, to find words to describe or to understand. But one thing that is very true is that as you continue to clear your vibration, clear your energy, allow old timelines, versions of self that are no longer meant for you to collapse, to close out. Continue to recommit yourself to that highest vibrational version of yourself. Everything else will continue to perfectly align and fall into place. The dots will connect themselves over the course of time. But of course, this does require of us intense levels of surrender it asks of us to be very fluid and to trust the process, of continuing to align with that highest version of self, whatever that looks like for us, trusting that the rest will continue to align itself, to fall into place, and to assist you with continuing to release these old vibrations, blockages, weighting you potentially to these other timelines. I have created a 7-chakra energy clearing subliminal meditation. Now, I personally use this exact meditation to clear my own aura and my energy field every single day. And the reason for this is because when you are someone who is collapsing out, closing out a lot of old timelines, rising very quickly to this highest vibrational version of yourself, and at the same time being someone who is very empathic and sensitive, it's very easy for you to pick up a lot of these lower vibrational or kind of blocking, weighting down sorts of energies. So energetic hygiene is so essential for you, and sound therapy is one very powerful tool to clear your energy and raise your vibration on a daily basis to continue allowing you to really hold that highest frequency for yourself and your life. So I've left more information on this 7-chakra energy clearing subliminal in the pinned comments and description box under this video. But for those of you who don't know, this does come from my website and soul passion project, soundandsoulful.com. So as you can see on the screen, I do create subliminals for every area of life, and you can even combine these subliminals into your own custom private playlists. And all of this is available to you as a member on my site. You can even try it out free for 7 days. And again, all of that information is linked under the video. Otherwise, again, I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this in the comments under the video. Let me know if you've ever experienced this collapsing of timelines, this shifting onto your highest timeline, and how that has felt personally for you. I would love if you could subscribe to this channel if you do feel a resonance with me or with this content here on YouTube. We are creating together this beautiful, high vibrational community of like-minded, conscious, creative beings, and I would really love for you to be part of that. You can also follow me on Instagram at @magnetizeyourself. I hope you have a beautiful, wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you again in the next video.